Saquon Barkley. The Eagles rushed for 319 fewer yards last season than they did in their Super Bowl year, the year before they lost 6 of their last 7 games, including that playoff debacle against Tampa. So despite the Saquon signing, and despite the Cowboys not making any moves, Philly still sits behind Dallas in odds to win the NFC East at ESPN Bet. Sal Paolantonio, who knows the situation better than anybody, was on McAfee saying this Saquon move will only add to the pressure on the coach.
I think Philly they're still behind Nick Sirianni, but I'll say it, Nick Sirianni's on the clock. Every head coach in the NFL is on the clock, but Nick Sirianni certainly is. Losing 2 of the core 4, Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce. It's time for Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni to step into the leadership breach left by those 2 guys leaving. That's why you bring in Saquon Barkley. You bring in a little bit of that veteran leadership. He's going to help out Jalen Hurts in that aspect as well as the offense.
I am a huge Saquon Barkley fan, a huge believer. I thought this was an enormous and impactful move for that Eagles offense that did not run the ball nearly as well last year. Jalen Hurts did not look nearly as good last year. How much of a difference does Saquon Barkley make quickly, RC?
I think Saquon makes a huge difference in what Sal is talking about in the leadership role. We've seen Miles Sanders succeed. We saw DeAndre Swift have a good year when Brian Johnson put the football in his hands. It's going to be about what Saquon Barkley can bring from his experience, from his leadership, and the way that he connects with people in the locker room, and also the confidence that he gives you with that sort of talent at the position. But he needs to be used in the correct manner. I think Saquon Barkley becoming a part of this team is only to add to the star power of the offense, but don't forget about Howie Roseman's moves to get Bryce Huff and C.J. Gardner-Johnson defensively, because those were huge as well.
So, Kmart, how about the pressure that Sal is talking about?
Gosh, 1,000%, because Nick Sirianni could not stop his team from free-falling the last 2 months of the season, and then when the season was over, he couldn't explain why it happened, or he couldn't talk to how he plans to not let that happen again. The Eagles are a team that was just in the Super Bowl, and they completely fell off a cliff. So I think Sal is right. Adding Saquon at that price tag, another big name, is a lot of pressure. But even without Saquon, people in Philly, they were getting frustrated with Nick Sirianni not having any answers, and now we're going to see if he does this season.
Well, look, they make the changes at coordinators and all that kind of stuff, and no one knows that market and that situation better than you do, Louis. I mean, how would you describe the expectations and the pressure that come with them in Philly?
Rainey, I think that's it right there. That's where really the pressure lies. The coordinators, the new guys. It's going to be about Kellen Moore getting Jalen Hurts back on track, getting Saquon Barkley involved, making sure A.J. Brown doesn't go a month without scoring a touchdown, to where all of a sudden now he's getting ticked off. Make sure Devontae Smith continues to be the Robin to A.J. Brown's Batman, and that those two are working in conjunction with one another. Making sure this offensive line, now that Jason's not going to be there, is still in sync, still in unison, still the best run-blocking offensive line in all of football. That all falls on Kellen Moore. And then on the defensive side, Ryan talked about Bryce Huff. Obviously, their defensive linemen were supposedly up on the block as far as being trade candidates when you're talking about Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. So those guys need to play better. Now, who does that fall on? They also have a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. Yep. So those 2 guys in particular, just like last year's coordinators were on the hot seat, they're on the hot seat too. And if Nick Sirianni actually picked those guys, then look, of that right there to me is where it all starts. That's where it all starts, even before we get to the locker room.
So that's a whole other level of issue there, and the proof will be in the pudding, I suppose, when we get there. The only thing I'll say about that other part is this. 2 things. One, I'm a Jalen Hurts believer. No one is ever going to convince me he was healthy last year.
Right.
I don't think he talked about it much. I think his knee was a problem all year long, so hopefully he'll be healthy. 2, am I overstating it when I say I believe Saquon Barkley can have a McCaffrey-esque impact on an offense? I think he has been that level of player on a terrible team throughout his entire career.
I don't think you're overstating that, and that's what they're expecting Saquon Barkley to come in and do, because in what is a depressed market for running backs, Saquon Barkley got $26 million guaranteed at signing. That's letting them know how important you are to this offense, but it's also going to be about the way you utilize him. It's going to be about the way you put the football in his hands. We saw DeAndre Swift have big games behind this offensive line last year. Now, how How do you put Saquon Barkley in those positions to have one-on-ones in the open field? This dude was contacted behind the line of scrimmage the second most in the entire NFL last year. We've seen him when he has space. You talked about hitting the home run, Lou. Saquon Barkley can hit the home run. Now you add that to what Devontae and AJ can do on the outside, and a healthy Jalen, you expect this offense to be much better.
Yeah, very quickly, Louis, the way Orlovsky phrased it on our show the other day was football has never been as easy for Saquon Barkley as it is going to be in this offense when he look back at his career.
Yeah, theoretically it should be. It absolutely should be because of how good the personnel is that he's working with. But the key is how are they going to look, when you say could he have a Christian McCaffrey-esque type of influence on this team? He sure could. But Kellen Moore, see, are you Kyle Shanahan? Are you going to use him that way? And are you going to stay true to your discipline? Because you know this, you can absolutely neutralize a good player by not utilizing them properly. That's what I'm talking about.
Kmart, Eagles, Cowboys. I know you're tired of talking about the Cowboys. Right this minute, I'm asking for your ESPN bet. Eagles or Cowboys to win the NFC East right now?
Oh, Eagles.
Eagles.
Also, this too, Greeny, one quick thing. What happens when A.J. Brown is upset he's not getting the ball?
In the short term, people will go, man, that just sounds preposterous. This kid hasn't been set up for success, and we all know that. We do know that, but right now the market is speaking. The teams are speaking. If someone thought Justin was an immediate starter, he would have been traded for and he would be on someone's roster right now. So I think he needs to find the best situation for him in terms of quarterback room, head coach stability, structure around him in terms of the organization, and be willing to sit if that's what it takes in order for it to pay off down the road.
All right, so let me bring RC and Kmart in on this, and I want to start the conversation in this place with it, RC, because, look, when you're wrong, you're wrong. I mean, I am a huge believer in Justin Fields to the point that I've been like a broken record over the last, whatever it's been, 6 weeks of this conversation. But 31 NFL teams are telling me I'm wrong, and they can't all be wrong. So what am I missing, RC? If you're a person, if you're sitting in one of those chairs where they're evaluating their quarterback options, and you're saying one of my options is to trade, let's say, a third-round pick for Justin Fields, maybe pick up his fifth-year option, maybe not. It's still a heck of a lot less expensive than most of the. Why is everyone saying no to that?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why everyone is saying no, or maybe everyone isn't saying no. Maybe the Chicago Bears are saying no. Maybe some of the things that you've seen, the Chicago Bears actually want to keep Justin Fields and not draft Caleb Williams. But let's say Caleb Williams is a foregone conclusion at 1. A team sitting back, and if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders, do I go out and get Gardner Minshew, or do I go out and get someone with explosivity in their arms, someone that could create plays with their legs? I think Justin Fields would have been an upgrade over him. Rather than going out and get Russell Wilson, I would rather bring Justin Fields in to compete with Kenny Pickett, because that allows me to have a franchise quarterback of the future for the next decade if he works out. But someone is sitting back and evaluating, and they don't agree with us.
Right.
They don't agree with us that Justin Fields is that next guy to be a starter for that team. Or, like I said earlier, Ryan Poles has pulled the wool over all of our eyes, and it's all been about a weem away. He's been the Lion King the entire offseason, and he's going to keep Justin Fields as his starter.
But we don't expect that. And Kmart, I know you don't think that either.
Keep shooting it down.
So one of the things that could be going on here is that Ryan Poles may have overplayed his hand. He may have been asking for more at the beginning of this process. We don't know. And I suppose on some level we're never going to know. But explain it to me. What are people saying to you when you talk to them about why no one wants to give what little it seems in the big picture it would take to get this kid?
So I talked to an NFL exec yesterday whose team was in the QB market. And I said, how could teams that need a starter or a backup not want Justin Fields? And he says, the longer we wait, the cheaper he becomes. Now, I personally think Pittsburgh should have gone after Justin Fields. Obviously, Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan disagree. But when you think about the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles, and I still believe they're going to use that #1 pick on Caleb Williams. But when you think about the position they're in, everybody knows they're going to take a quarterback. And it's a game of chicken. Negotiation, it's like, okay, well, we know that you got to get rid of him somehow. So either you trade him or are you going to release him outright? That would be great. That would be crazy. But teams are going to say, well, why don't we just wait? Why don't we just wait? Again, I don't think a Gardner Minshew, like that, again, that seems like a stopgap where I look at Justin Fields as someone that I could build with for the foreseeable future. So I do think from a scouting perspective, teams might feel differently about Justin, but at the same time, they recognize that if the Bears want a 2, we don't have to give them a 2.
Well,
we're too
so
late.
that's an interesting game we're playing now, Louis. So now all of a sudden, I'm just thinking about 3 places, because Mike T brought this up with us yesterday. 3 places that signed quarterbacks this weekend that probably aren't thinking to themselves, well, we're set now. One of them is the Raiders with Minshew.
Minnesota.
One of them is the Minnesota now
too.
also traded away Kirk Cousins. And
Giants?
also New England, who they signed Jacoby Brissett. Does that mean, okay, now we're set at quarterback? Now maybe they're taking one at 3. But the point, Louis, is maybe, to Kimberly's point, you're thinking, if you're sitting in that chair, you're thinking, I'll just wait another week. And the price will, as Fat Joe says, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Greeny!
That's what I'm talking about.
Round of applause
Go ahead, Louis.
there.
What do you think?
I don't think Fat Joe made that up.
Look, that may be happening. In which case, what you're saying then is that Ryan Poles he kind of priced himself out of the market. He thought he could get something for Justin Fields that he simply can't. And he knows that as every day goes along, as his phone is not ringing off the hook and someone's not making an offer, he knows the price is going down too. So really it's going to be on him. This is, again, assuming they're going to go ahead and take the quarterback, which I think they will, and that he is looking for the best deal. He knows, look, if I'm him right now, I'm trying to strike the best deal I can right now, because I know that with every day the price is going to go down, and I'm going to look worse and worse and worse in terms of the people who I have to answer to when they say, look, he was a #1 pick and all you could get was a 6th, a conditional 7th?
Exactly.
You had to cut him? Like, I'm sitting there going, like, right now I'm trying to make a deal. I'm trying to, and I'm not trying to hold, anybody's feet to the fire. I'm not trying to strong arm anybody. I'm going, look, make your best deal to me. Make it to me now. Because I also said I want to do good by the player. So it may be just that, teams just don't look at Justin the way many other people do. And I think more and more that is the case.
That would have to be it, though, Lou, right? If Ryan Poles said at the Combine, I want to do right by the kid, and if he also understands the longer that he waits, the less he's going to get for Justin Fields, this deal should have been done. He should have wanted to leave Indianapolis with this deal done. Yeah. And as more teams are getting quarterbacks and are filling spaces on their roster, it gets harder and harder to unload Justin Fields, because it's not only like I'm going to give you less, I need him less.
But help me. I want you to be my analyst now, right? You're my NFL analyst. Does it make sense for New England? If you're New England, does it make sense?
It absolutely makes sense for New England. It makes sense for New England. It makes sense for Minnesota. It still makes sense for Las Vegas to me, depending on what happens in the draft. But if you're a team, you're going to wait until after that. And then now, Ryan Poles, you're going to be sitting there with Caleb Williams in your quarterback room, going forward as your franchise starter, and Justin Fields. Why would I give you anything?
Right.
So if you're going to make that move should have been made, Louis.
But that's the point that Kmart is making, is teams are waiting them out. Go ahead, Lou.
It only makes sense, right, if they believe that he is a better option than what they could get in the draft when you're talking about teams like New England, teams like Minnesota, teams like Las Vegas.